Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a Media Matters special. The Bundesliga season is finished, and that means Liverpool are interested in players galore from Germany. There's links, there's targets, there's things developing every single second, as we know right now. And I'm pleased that we need a Bundesliga expert, so we managed to get one. Unfortunately, Ninad Barbadikar is with us, a regular contributor for the Bundesliga site. Ninad, how are we?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we'll see if you say that after we've asked the 8,000 million questions we've got for you. But we'll get right into it straight away. And it's an interesting one, Ninad. Now that the season's finished, the Bundesliga season's finished, I should say, there are links galore coming out for not just Liverpool, but other clubs involved in Bundesliga players. There's going to be a lot of movement, departures from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's been another interesting year, I should say, in terms of player development for the Bundesliga, where a lot of players have taken significant steps, and at least in making themselves appear Premier League ready in terms of making that next step. I think it's just a result of what we're seeing. The number of players that we discussed, like you say already, it's an exciting time to be someone following the Bundesliga and the Premier League. So yeah.
Yeah, and it will be exciting for us as Liverpool fans if they arrive at our club. So there's a fair few players we want to talk about, so we'll get into it straight away. And probably the hottest link, you had no doubt I was going to ask you about this, Jeremie Frimpong. I mean, this is the one all over the news. It almost feels a matter of when, not if. So people are naturally like us. We're watching YouTube compilations. We're catching all the Leverkusen matches we could before the end of the season. Maybe a simple question, but difficult to answer. What would you say were Frimpong's best attributes as a player? How would you profile him?
So I think we've seen possibly the best version of what Frimpong can be in the past couple of seasons since Xabi Alonso has come in. And he's, obviously we've read a lot about his sort of use as a wing back, and even more so sometimes as a right winger. So I think there's a sort of bigger emphasis on his attacking qualities, where he can sort of use his pace to almost outpace anybody on their finest day. I think that's one of his biggest attributes, where he can just use that pace all day to make runs in behind like defenses and sort of hurt opposition backlines inside the penalty box with his movements. Even if he isn't the greatest finisher, it's the amount of volume he gets in those movements into the box and sort of affecting ball progression with his carrying. I think those are some of his key attributes, where he's with the ball, he's just rapid and he's just on the go all the time. So yeah, very exciting player to watch on and off the pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the off the pitch side, because as you said, on the pitch, you see him, he is rapid, and the Bundesliga published their physical data. There's no two ways to doubt that at all. Off the pitch, it does seem, maybe it's right to say, a bit of a character, a bit of a personality. Is that fair to say?
It would be absolutely fair to say that. And I think anybody who's even tried to have a partial interest in the Bundesliga will have followed Archie Reintutz's interviews, post-match interviews. Archie is great, by the way, for ESPN. So whenever he does an interview with Jeremie, you can see just that sort of bubbly side come out of him. And I can see Jeremie fit really well as a player, not just at Liverpool, the club, but also Liverpool, the city. We already know he's got the Scouse accent nailed down. So yeah, that's half the struggle finished. But yeah, he is a great character, and I think in terms of the dressing room vibe that he can improve, he's already a big personality, and there's already a Dutch contingent at Liverpool who will no doubt welcome him with warmth. Let's just say,
Yeah, there's a number: Van Dijk, Gakpo, Gravenberch, etc. And obviously the manager on a slot. And that was one thing I did want to ask you, Ninad, with this. And he has been developing. We've seen the stats. We've seen certain metrics. Wanting to be obviously completely respectful to Leverkusen. It's a jump now for him to the Premier League, a different style, a bit more physical that way. Would you say the feeling in Germany is that he's ready to take this step?
I think so. And I think another aspect to this is that it's a great market opportunity for Liverpool to get in someone who's available at a manageable price and who's obviously got a really high ceiling offensively, where you've seen teams trying to purchase fullbacks and try to purchase defenders in the sense of controlling the game a lot more. We've seen Arsenal invest in Ricardo Calafiori, Jurien Timber. City have gone for the likes of Guardiola. These are centre backs who are sort of now playing as fullbacks, but Liverpool are sort of going the other way around, where they're going, no, we want more offensive players in our team, which is a very interesting approach. And I think Danny Cochran, a good friend of mine, and I'm sure a lot of Liverpool fans know him, he also made this point that sort of Liverpool are going against the grain of what elite sides are trying to do in terms of recruiting fullbacks who are a lot more offensive. So obviously, aside from Jeremie, within the Premier League, there's also links with Miros Kerkic, who I'm sure Liverpool fans are not tired of hearing his name anytime soon. I think it's a very exciting time to be sort of obviously be a Liverpool fan, but also have this sort of approach where you are sort of going against what the established elite sides is doing. And but specifically with Frimpong, I think there is definitely some concern about sort of his immediate physical adjustment with the Premier League, but I think that's where his the factor of his pace comes back into the equation, where he's just going to use his pace to sort of make up for any sort of deficiencies that he can. And I think it's an interesting sort of dynamic where obviously with Trent you had before certain defensive weaknesses. I still don't think he was as defensively weak as everybody made him out to be, but fair enough. Each to their own. I think with Frimpong, you get different strengths, obviously, not the passing game that Trent has had, but already we can see on those FBref percentiles, he's a very, very strong carrier of the ball, gets in attacking positions really, really well. And can affect offensive play, which is at the end of the day, you want players who can affect goal scoring. And I think Frimpong does that absolutely to a very high degree.
Do you think ultimately that's why Liverpool have decided to pull the trigger on this one? That there might be a few concerns, as you said, around maybe physical metrics, defensive elements, but they will take that trade-off that for a fullback, and as you said, someone who can play in various positions down the right, the attacking elements are just that strong. It's worth the trade-off, the gamble, if you want to call it that.
Absolutely. And I think when you have someone like Mo Salah, who is, let's be honest, he's not getting any younger as elite he has been. He's not getting any younger. And so if you have someone like Frimpong who can sort of stretch that right flank all day with his bombarding runs up and down the right, I think it's going to be a big plus for him to sort of have someone like Frimpong make those sort of inward runs and sort of pulling defenders away from him, trying to create more space for him on the right. And again, it's another player who can sort of facilitate space for Mohamed Salah, which is again what you want. He is your star player. You want him to see more of the ball and to be able to do things with the ball in the sort of best way possible. And I think Frimpong is someone who can really dovetail well with Salah and his qualities. So I think that's that. Yeah, I think the trade-offs are worth it with Frimpong, and I think there will be an element of patience with him, as is the case with I think a lot of Bundesliga players who make the transition to the Premier League, because as you know, Bundesliga is a lot more transitional, and I think there's a sort of element of players can sometimes arrive underdeveloped physically because it's not as physical as Liga 1 or La Liga, for example, or even the Serie A for that matter. But I think in terms of the athletic attributes, Frimpong is as good as you can get in terms of that right side, right wing back, right back market. So even though he is not a traditional fullback, and he hasn't been a traditional fullback for a while, I think it will be interesting to see how Arne Slot can mold his game into Liverpool's system, and maybe that involves having more control in other areas of the pitch. Maybe that involves having McAllister and Gravenberch playing a little bit more deeper, controlling the middle of the park that way. I don't know. There's a few different permutations you can go about it, but again, it all comes back to the same point of the trade-offs are worth it when it comes to someone like Frimpong. He ticks so many boxes in terms of player quality, in terms of the characteristic fit, the personality. It makes absolute sense to go for this deal. So I can see why Liverpool are doing it. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to lie, you've got me excited about that one, Ninad. So I'm hoping this theme carries on, because you will have seen this player, his teammate, maybe his ex-teammate soon to be,
Mm-hmm.
Florian Wirtz. You will have seen all the stories, no doubt. And I don't want to assume, but I'd be astonished if this wasn't the buzz of German football right now. I mean, is it fair to say with Wirtz, we're not underhyping this? He is the star, or one of the stars of German football, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's no questioning that. I think him and Musiala are two of the biggest stars currently in German football, and they are expected to be sort of the flag bearers for the national team in the coming years. And there is there's been a huge sort of excitement about Wirtz, coming through, at Leverkusen, and ever since I think in 2020 he made his debut. He's been a mainstay in the senior team, but in the last couple of years he's just gone to a different level under Alonso. And yeah, it's hugely exciting to see where this player will go next, because I think the exit does feel inevitable, in the sense that you've already seen Xabi Alonso has announced his exit. You're seeing Jeremie Frimpong is close to an exit. I think there is a sense of inevitability to it. It's just a case of if Liverpool can sort of find the finances for it, because as we know, Man City have publicly, or seemingly publicly, sort of withdrawn their interest from him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how the deal works out. But there's absolutely no doubt that Florian Wirtz is one of the most exciting players in the world, let alone Germany. So yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably one of the big reasons why Liverpool fans are so excited right now, obviously hoping no bad Bayern news, as we phrase it over here, comes in at all. So people will have seen him, and they'll look at some of his headline metrics and think 16 goals, 13 assists across the big two competitions, including the Champions League there. I did want to ask you, from sort of a regular watcher of the Bundesliga, what would you say is his best position and his best attributes as well?
So in terms of a position, obviously Wirtz is more of a playmaking sort of attacking midfielder. He plays in Alonso's system, plays just behind the striker. So normally Patrick Schick would be the starting forward, just playing behind the forward in that sort of pocket of space in the middle. But also not just limited to that, Wirtz sort of affects all phases of play for Leverkusen and offers them a lot of different solutions in different phases of play. Maybe not going as far as sort of helping the centre backs, but definitely helping that sort of being that connective tissue between midfield and attack, and then obviously executing the final sort of attacking action all by himself. So if it's a chance or if it's a shot that he takes himself, he's that kind of player who sort of affects the sort of overall landscape of your attack, if you will. So I think in terms, if I had to place him in Slot's system, I think I would see him somewhere in the spot in front of McAllister and Gravenberch, because I would still expect them to be the starting pivot for next season. I think in front of them, or if you will, maybe replacing Cody Gakpo on the left. But then how does that affect the dynamics elsewhere in the pitch is an interesting question. So I think maybe I can see Wirtz sort of have a little bit more of a freer role on the left, or in front of the double pivot. So yeah, he is a number 10, a playmaker, if you will. And but he's also a lot more than a traditional number 10, in that he gives so much more off the ball. And I think, anybody can have a look at the Bundesliga website for his physical metrics, where he's always top in the charts in terms of sprints, duels won. Wirtz is phenomenal as a playmaker, phenomenal as an offensive a maestro, if you will, but also off the ball, he gives his team so much, and that's why he's such a coveted player. That's why he is so highly regarded, not just in German football but also outside of it. Yeah,
it does sound exciting, and yeah, you've sold me even more on this if I wasn't 1,000% in already, to be honest. And I suppose you'll have seen it, all the latest news is this, as it's described, almost just a straight fight between Bayern, and Liverpool, with Wirtz ultimately making the decision. And maybe, just maybe, Leverkusen might be on our side a little bit with this as well.
It does seem that way, Dave. I think in terms of his profile and obviously the transfer fee that he will command, I think there is a big commitment, and obviously Man City have been unwilling to make that. And with Bayern, I think there's been a really aggressive sort of push from them, for him to be part of their team, for him to play alongside Musiala, which is, again, I think maybe like this big dream of the Bayern board to have two of the best German footballers on their team. So I think, yeah, it does seem like there's a bit of a two-horse race for him between Liverpool and Bayern. But I think it will be in Leverkusen's interests, obviously, to sell him off to a team outside of the Bundesliga. It only makes sense to do that. It will be interesting to see, though, if that actually does come to be, because I think this is a very, very special player. As much as it would sadden me to see him leave, I would be thrilled to see him sort of excel in another league, which I think is ultimately what his family wants for him anyway. Even if he does, in another sort of instance, does sign for Bayern, I think the idea maybe is for him to go abroad, away from Germany, anyhow in the future. But if that happens sooner, then so be it. His talents are so good. I think, yeah, he's going to go straight to the top of the game. Absolutely.
Excited for this one. And there was the final question, because you touched upon it there, that if we picked it up right, his family, his dad especially, have a prime part as his advisor, part of his camp that way. And the big suggestions are that it's not really about money for Wirtz, it's about the project, where he can be successful, win the most trophies. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so. I mean, after being a sort of a key player of the Xabi Alonso era at Leverkusen, and even during this time, he's had significant interest in him. I think then he is definitely a player who will seek the right project to develop. In that sense, I was quite surprised that Man City were so eager to step away from him. I would have thought that they really saw him as the ideal Kevin De Bruyne replacement, because I see him a lot in the same light of De Bruyne, and that he can just be eventually at that level, that he's just so good at everything. So yeah, I think it will be interesting to see how it all pans out. Yeah.